Hi guys, we continue to work on real world examples, and in this lesson I'm going to import another dataset and work on it. First I will import my pandas library by typing import pandas spd. Then I will import the dataset pd read csv. I will go to the data folder here. One step back inside of the data folder, I will pick up this file name, and after two dots and data folder, I will paste in that file, then call it here. Right, okay, we have imported our dataset and it looks good right now. If I import it, we could see the top 5 and the last 5 rows of this dataset, although this dataset has an n value and this kind of value and .a value, but we will just cover them. First, the first task is how to remove and fill null values with 0 or mean value. Yes, okay, if we try to find the null values, we already know that we could type in the isNull or isNull function, isNull, and then sum it and paste out which column has null values here. And you could see migrants net column has only the migrant net column has 34 null values, and we want to get rid of these values. First, in order to get rid of them, we will type in, we could either have replace it with the average or maximum of these numbers, or fill in just with the 0. Let's try to cover the first trick. I want to fill in these values, 34 values, n values with 0. I will do it with the fillNA method by typing the df and the name of the column called migrant net. I will copy it first, migrant net, and then add in what? The fillNA method, and inside of this method I will add in the value that I want to replace with, and parameter called in place true equals true. Right, if I click shift enter and call the data frame itself, run it, you will see that it will replace all the values with 0, although it has just converted it to 0.0 because we have the data type, floating data type here. I think that migrants net has the floating data types, that's why it has printed it as with decimals. Yes, you could see float, but that's not the case. We already know that we have done it. And then if I don't want to replace it with 0, I mean I have the migrant net column and has these kind of values, numeric values here, and I want to pick up the average value of these rows and just replace all these values with this average value. In order to do this, I will first refresh the dataset again, and this function here 34, and instead of this one I will comment it out. I will type into it again the name of the column, df name of the column, and then I will add in the fillNA method, and inside of the fillNA method I will again pass in the name of the column, this column migrant net, with this mean method. Mean method will do what? It will just find out the average number of these values inside of this column, migrant net column, and give a parameter called in place true because we want to make it permanent here. If I click shift enter and call the data frame again, we could see that it has replaced all this NaN value, null values, with this 6.28, right? And now all these values have been filled with this average value. If I just again run this code again, you could see we don't have a null values here, but these are not the null values, it's just predefined NaN values that which are being defined here. We could even do what? type in these names, and we will replace these ones. If we want, we will just skip do it in this option. We will drop this any specific value, but for now I will do what? I will try to rename these column names here. We already know how to print out the column names. If I type in the df columns, click shift enter, you could see we have these kind of spaces between these scopes and these strings here, but I don't want it to be like that. I want just to replace it with the underscore. How we should do this? We could even type in the df columns equals make a loop here by typing the I replace. What do I want to replace? This space with what? With the underscore here. And again I will type in the for I in df columns. It is going to run or iterate over all these columns and replace these spaces with this underscore, and call the data frame again, and you can see all columns have been replaced with these spaces. All of these columns with spaces have been replaced with this underscore here. And why did I use it? This is just a proper way of defining the columns. We don't usually have a column name with spaces in CSV format, but if we have in the future, we might face the problems while calling these columns. That's why I just replace it with this underscore in order to call it differently easily. We could call it like that without problems if we have a underscore instead of the space, but if we have a space, we are not able to call it like that. Okay, then the third function is replace all the columns at once, because these columns contain spaces. Okay, we have done it. I will just copy this one and this one, cut it here and paste it here. Okay, run it, and then we want to rename these columns. How do we rename it? If I want to rename a couple of columns, let's see that I want to rename these two columns here. We will type in the df rename columns equals what? Curly brackets, these names of columns. The first one will be this one, and I will type in the column names here. The second one will be, what do I want to replace with? I just want to replace it with country, right? And after the comma, I can give a second column name here. Population 2020 will be replaced with, like this, population 20 will be replaced with population. This is just a sample of replacing the columns, and then I can easily pass in place true parameter, place equals true, and click shift enter. And again, if I call the data frame itself, you could see that it will replace these two column names here. If I want to round up these values, these decimal values, we could, how do we easily do it? We are just calling the column name here, like this column name. Let's see that I will type in the df the column name here, and again equals again the column name, we will type it, and add in the round method here, round and 1 for example. And then if I run it and call the data frame itself here, it will round up these numbers here. You could see 6.28 will be converted to the 6.3 here. And now if I want to drop these n.a values here, I can do it easily by typing first. I will just get to know which columns has this kind of values, n.a values. In order to do this, first I will give a variable here, value equals to n.a, right? Then I will type in the df2, for example, data frame 2 equals to df columns, I'm calling the columns, and inside of the columns I will type in the what, df dot eq parameter with value, and if I add in the any method here, any method, and call the data frame itself, the second data frame, it will say that none of these columns have this kind of value, NA value. Why? Because we have this kind of columns with NA values. If I run it again and run this one again, it will not print it out. Okay, what is the problem with this one? If I run it, you could see it actually has dot at the end. That's why it has skipped it and not printed out. And right now it's perfect, and it says that we have three columns that have NA value, n.a value. And now we are freely open to remove these values. Now I will just iterate over these columns and drop all rows which contain these values. In order to do this, I will just type in the variable column to check equals to what, I will create a list, and the list will be equals to these column names here. Can even replace it, right? And then I will give what, we already have this value, NA value, and if I want to iterate over it, I can easily do it like for I in this variable, right, and print out the I, If I click shift enter, it will print out these three column names. And now I will do what, give it a logic called df here, and the df again, the column name will be this I. Right now we have already converted the columns with I, because I is going to iterate over the columns. I should not be equals to what, the value here, I just say that print me all the these column names without these n.a values here. We are just giving this kind of condition here, and then I will define this one to the df itself, and right now if I again call the data frame here, you could see that it has 194 rows here instead of 235 rows, because we haven't skipped all these columns with these NA values here. You could see we don't have this kind of value here. Okay, and then we have output specific columns by reordering their positions. We can easily reorder them. We already have this kind of data. If I want to print specific column names, I will type in the df to square brackets. If I want to pass in a couple of columns here, the first one will be the country, the second one will be population, the third one will be, for example, yearly change, right? Do I have a yearly change? Yes, yearly change. And that's it. If I just run it, you could see we have a new data set here. But I will give one more data set column name here. Let's pick up this one, migrant net. Right, and click shift enter. Okay, already we have what, the new kind of data set here. And now if I want to reorder the columns based on the numeric positions, let's see that I have this kind of column, is this kind of data frame, and I want to reorder them. In order to reorder these columns, let's again pick up this data frame here, because we haven't just defined this ordering to the data frame. If I call the data frame again, it will just print out the previous ones, because we haven't defined it like that. Okay, I have printed out this data set, and now I want to print them whole with the order names by typing the numbers instead of the column names. I want just to print out, for example, first, second, third, fifth columns here. This is the easy way. We just don't retype these column names again here. In order to do this, I will first convert these column names to df columns list to the list by typing the to list. After converting these ones to the list, if I print them out, column names, yes, it will convert these column names to the list. And now I will give an order called new order, and equals to what? For example, 0, 1, and 2, and this one. For example, this country was 0, population was 1, yearly change was 2, and migrant nets was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for example. I will put in this 6 here. And now I can print it with the df_iloc function, df_iloc, by typing the column as I want to print out all these rows. This means that the rows are located in this parameter, and the second one will be what? The columns here, and the columns are defined to this variable here. I will paste in the variable name here and call the data frame df23 and click shift enter, and you could see this data set has been ordered as these ones, but compared to this structure, it's much easier to call the column names like that here. I think that's it for now. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel. Have a good day. Bye.